Leaving Alexander and home, setting out at the request slash recommendation or manipulative bargain, depending on who all is asking of record, Odette leaves with 6 vials of holy water that she's been told she can put on her spear and, in a single hit, kill Perish, the god of rotten decay. She's walked a few miles and has found the skull and body in which she once camped with friends who are gone now, the ones who originally sent her to home, before finding a membrane in the ground that can be cut open with the spear and slipped through. And as you slide into it, you feel very narrow caverns pressing down on you from all sides. It's strange as you've never really been underground, but you've seen the chasm outside of the tower and the dry air of the desert that comes out of it. But this is moist. This is humid. It feels like there's an ecosystem down here, and you hear that distant thrum, a pulsing of some kind. What's Odette doing?
I don't believe that Odette has a light source. So that's fun.
Mm-hmm.
And it's very, like, it's just darkness forward? Or is there any source of light?
There's no sources of light, but it's that strange, like, when you're outside and there's a full moon and it's all grayscale, and it should be darker, but it's just a little wrong sort of feeling.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Great. Then she mumbles to herself a silent prayer to no one. And begins to walk forward. Just already has the spear out and is clutching it. I think she actually would, while she's walking, open one of the vials and put it on the spear to start.
Okay. Yeah. Having doused your spear, doesn't light up, but you feel like it was a good choice. As you walk forward, the slope down is a strange, almost comforting pattern. You would expect something like this to have like a big fall or slopes. It seems like this is either a path that was carved by people for use or has been made to welcome them in. You never hit a spot where you need to exert yourself too much. You never hit a spot where you need to jump over a cavern. It's a welcoming glide down. And you can't help notice the membrane on the wall seems to just never change. Not sure if it's because of whatever's providing it or if it's because of the fact that it's trying to dissociate you. But it seems like it's a constant, easy path down. And then you would come to a wall is a wrong term, as it's not thick enough to be a wall. It's semi-translucent, and it looks like a weird, almost like dissected, thinly cut leaf of some kind. The almost translucent with veins running through it, but still tangible something. Flesh is the wrong word, but it appears meaty. There's something living about it because it pulses with the pulse in front of you. This strange plant membrane sits at the end of the descent, and through it you can see the wide open underground beyond.
She stretches a little bit as if she's gonna do a big move, but she doesn't want to waste her coated spear. So I think she's going to turn it around the other way and just not hit it super hard, because it's like, this might be a living thing and hurting it might be mean. But just kind of press and see what the response is.
With doing it on the back end, it's not impossible, and if you lean into it enough, you can pierce it the same way you did the different membrane up top. Though up top you were able to cut it with the sharp end of a spear, here it's almost like trying to apply pressure to something and forcing it to pop against its will. As you do, you see that it opens for you, but something on the interior seems to fly out. Some sort of mucusy or spore-like thing into the air. Does Odette want to do anything to prevent that, or will Odette accept it?
Probably just immediate response to that, because she wasn't expecting it, is putting like her shirt up over her face to try to block as much of breathing that in as possible.
I'm not going to make you roll a tempt fate for that, as I think that's an innate enough response that it's easily done without needing to rely on anything. If anything, it could be considered act impulsively if you wanted to attempt to use a move.
Why not? Let's do it. Let's do the mechanics of the game. I'll pick my favorite one, which is what advantage do I seize, because I like that one. I think the advantage seized is she is able to block out a fairly good amount and like turn away from the initial burst quick enough for minimal damage.
Okay. And then the trouble that hits you fast and hard will be... It's not quite fast and hard in the sense of how it's presenting. It's more slow and drawn out, and you're realizing it almost in bullet time, is how corrosive this powdery stuff is. As the back of your spear, the part you pushed with, the part that got all of the goo on it, is no longer a nice rounded piece of wood. It is now a jagged, almost broken off handle at the back, and the bits of your shirt that it splatted onto, the nice like clean linens from home, dissolve through, and you now have like almost like moth like eatings out.
And when I turn back around and look through look into that spot, does it seem like the air is full of that on the other side?
It seems like the air is very stagnant. It's hard to tell if that is in the air, if dust is in the air, if some other sporous decaying factors in the air. You wouldn't look inside and think that is clean or that is comfortable. I'm not sure you'd recognize it as the same thing, but you would recognize that's not great.
Okay, cool. Awesome. Everything's gone great. I'm underground in a god's domain. Everything's going so well. She's gonna do the only thing she knows what to do right now, which is press forward. I think she would rip off a piece of cloth from the sort of overskirt she has and tie it around her face to try to create some sort of air filter of some kind, as minimal as it is. And we'll move forward. And she doesn't notice it, but her body is starting to tremble at the idea of everything that's happening right now.
Okay. I'll give you one strain for the mental stress of that.
Right.
And also to kind of encapsulate all of the stuff that has gotten on you. Even though it's eaten through your clothes, there's still a little bit of like irritability and harm from it landing on your skin and probably contributing to your mind. But as you get in, it seems to be as though this was once an occupiable city. Maybe not somewhere people wanted to live or even did live, but somewhere that Parrish has made in case he ever had worshippers that came down to visit him or people who wanted to dedicate themselves to him. You see the same membrane of like strange thin vegetation stretching up to like huts almost like they're made out of the top of toadstool mushrooms, but they're growing wrong, and the ones that are upside down are constantly raining down the sporous powder you see. There's a couple of like looking almost like bridges or roads of a different color vegetative membrane pulling you in different spots leading towards, you wouldn't call them buildings, but caves up against walls that seem to have a purpose and seem to be designed to be there. And ever present is the decay in the air, the lack of safety, the irritability if you were to breathe any of this in, and that humming sound, that pulsing, that now that you're down here seems to come from the furthest back of the large cave with a strange entryway into it. And it seems to start back there, and every time it pulses, move slowly through all of the membranes and vegetation up to the front of the cave, almost like it's all one big beating heart, sending the blood everywhere it needs to go.
She beholds this unexpected sight and feels so small again. It takes her back to being in the room with support. Despite this being a much wider open space of just being right within a god's domain, and one that most likely will mean her harm. And her gait sort of slows as this, from the brisk walk she was taking, as she just takes this all in and continues forward, a little more hesitant than before.
Do you think you would follow any of the roads towards, again, roads, any of the developments towards those caves on the walls? Are you trying to go directly towards the back, as that seems to be where the pulse is emanating from? Or are you trying to explore some of the like little huts and mushrooms as you walk through?
I think on her way she would sort of peek in to the abodes to see if there were any signs of people who had lived here.
Yeah.
Just sort of while she's walking, a little look through the windows. But she was warned by record that the people, the nomads of home, had gone in here and had not come out. And that if she does find them, to put them out of their misery. And she's afraid to see what kind of state they would be in if she did encounter them. And part of her thinks they might be, there's potential for them to be in those caves.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, well, with that on your mind, looking at the homes, it's rather strange. You can't tell if this is a trick of Parrish, as it's a thought in your mind, or if this is actually what's happening. But as you're looking, remembering that and thinking, you remember your first thought of looking at the infrastructure here is that all of the mushrooms seem to grow wrong. They're not growing at correct angles, their stalks don't seem to support. And as you get close, you kind of see the etchings of faces in them, as though these spurted out of people. And when enough of them grow, they then get up tall enough to make small community dwellings. And looking around, you see probably 5 or 6, and you think of the adventuring party of 12 or 14 people, and you see the amount of homes in here. And Odette isn't the most academically minded, but wouldn't be hard to put together if an expedition or two comes down and they get infected. Not that hard that they end up becoming the stalks that eventually bloom into fungus structures. And everyone that perishes down here becomes a living part of Parrish's domain, whether their mind is intact or not.
Oh my gosh. That is horrifying. How she discovers this and sees the face is she has gone to inspect one of the huts and sees something on the outside wall and brings her face a little closer as her mind creates the picture that it really does not want to and fights against. And it feels like a jump scare, a sudden processing of what's directly in front of her, and she stumbles back in horror of just yet another version of mortals being used in a domain in a horrific and potentially unending way. And she just mumbles to herself after getting her breathing back. I will fix this. As she remembers what she had agreed with Record that she would.
As you say that, you hear a voice. Echoing is wrong, as it doesn't seem to have resonance. It seems more just to be emanating from everywhere. And so it has a strange, almost sonar-like effect as you hear it. It's too thin of a voice to bounce off the walls and return, but it seems like every mouth of the huts and the membranes itself is able to open to talk to you at the same time. Are you a follower? Have you come to pay homage?
She looks around trying to pinpoint where exactly the voice is coming from and sees the faces speaking and is just gripping the spear. And she does not answer as she moves forward towards where it seems that perhaps the heart is located.
I'd say probably 5 or 6 steps after you move without answering. You see just like some polyps appearing at the edges of some of the mushrooms, and in the vegetation you see like little circular polyps open, and they blossom like the most beautiful of red flowers. And then the leaves pull back and fall away, each one of them seemingly putting more dust in the air until little eyes are on stalks in the middle, and they all look up to see you, and then melt away until nothing remains of the polyps and you wouldn't even know they were there. Oh, you do still move. Most people would respond, but I suppose you're not most people.
Still walking. I get that a lot, unfortunately.
It has a sense of humor. I like that. But do you come to pay homage? Do you come to worship? You need not be afraid. This is the natural state. This is the end.
No.
Ah. Perhaps you are more of my cousin's sort. Why then have you come to my domain?
To fulfill my end of a deal.
And you feel a pulse go through in that moment of silence. And what is the term of your deal?
She again does not answer as she continues forward.
as you take a step forward, acting in defiance of a god, the membrane opens up beneath you in a way, and you fall. And I'm going to have you take another point of strain.
Oh no.
As you fall a sizable distance. This cavern doesn't appear too large at the surface. It seems just like a city on top. But when you don't acknowledge Parrish and have done them a disservice by not even answering their questions, he seems to will the cavern to let you fall to the depths of it. And you are only spared by the pile you land on. And it would be impossible for anyone to describe what the pile is consistent of. There is for sure bone. There is for sure mycelium vines going in and out of bones and skulls, seeming to take the marrow and give it to the mushrooms and the things above. But there's also a strange watery substance that you could think was water if not for its gelatinous feel, as though the water itself has been broken down and turned into something rotten. Water left stale potentially, or maybe it was once a bog that hardened over and then melted again, leaving behind nothing but the rotting water essence. And then there's the mushroom heads. Large, constantly erupting spores, almost like geysers. And it's not a pretty sight, but it is a sight that saves Odette's life as she crashes down, landing on one of these.
As she was falling, she was trying to activate her flight from wind, but the momentum of the fall was too strong. And she lands on one of these and rolls to her side. The instinct is to try to catch her breath, and she puts her hand over her mouth and her nose to keep herself from doing that. And she just stands up and immediately is trying to activate wind to try to go back up out of here.
Yeah, go ahead and roll to wield a power. You have never done this specific act perfectly. If you would like to argue you have, let me know. But I feel like every canon event Odette has attempted to fly could not be described as perfect.
I think I did. I did when I rescued the mean guy who was falling off the tower, and I marked my 5th strain.
Yeah. You know, I could give you that. The reason my head didn't immediately go there was because activating it is what sent him off the tower, plummeting to his death. But I'll give it to you. I'll give you the +1. Are you desperate for this to work?
Yeah.
Okay, so a +2 and it mark an additional strain.
Oh man, that's my 4th one.
Oh, I'm not sure you've ever felt further from wind and her clean air than you do right now. So I will not allow a way for that 3rd one to work.
That's so fair.
Go ahead and roll 2d6 and add 2.
Okay, that's 6 +2, so that is 8.
Beautiful. How does Odette steel herself and head out?
It is instant. As she rolls to her side and sees this horrific sight of this pile and holds her face to keep both from breathing in and screaming. And it is that pure instinct, and she had already tried to activate this while falling, so it was already being worked up, that she gets herself to her feet and still holding her side from the fall. And, well, let's see. She's still gripping the spear. So how does that work? Yeah, it would work. and just flies straight up again with the intent to keep the flight activated through the remainder of her time here so that this cannot happen again.
Okay. Very smart. Good job, Odette. Yeah. I think as you ascend, you can see the floor already starting to seal itself back up. So probably in a moment of desperation, extra activate and send yourself through. What do you do? You're hovering above everything. Do you fly directly where you want to go, or do you take a different approach?
I'm gonna fly directly where I need to go. Her brain is now in the sooner you get this done, the sooner you get out of here. She is so close to this 5th strain. I think that fall deeply injured her. And it is pure human instinct instead of the divinity in her shining through. It's that human instinct to stay alive for as long as possible kicking in.
Beautiful. Then flying over the remainder of the huts, flying away from the cave systems, flying away from anything looking like an invitation to a shrine or a spot to be, and flying directly to the heart of the whatever it is at the back. You arrive at what would most likely be considered a curtain, as the same membranes and vines that you've seen, but seeming this close to where Rot resides, where Parrish resides, the life even in this can't exist. And it's withered, and it's dry, and it's almost a strange leather jerky texture instead of the liquidy plant texture you had seen, as though everything alive about it had been sucked out and left to dry. And it's the same thing, but you don't need to pierce it. You can just move it aside as these leathery curtains hang in front of you.
It's so gross. This is so gross. She lands on her feet, but in a way, she still has the flight active. So just barely being on the ground. And will, with the jagged end of the spear, just push through and open the curtain. As if, like, someone who's super grossed out doesn't want to touch a door handle, and so they do anything else. And moves the curtain aside.
As you move it aside, you see on the other side of it, it seems to be... looks clean, but you know it's not. It's not clean in the way that you would find a home, or clean in the way you'd see a marble building. It's clean in the way that nothing has lived here for so long. There's nothing to dirty it. And that even the dust molecules have dried out. And so the entire place is a strange bone white, but it doesn't feel like it's bone. It feels like it's the same thing you've been walking on, but almost like instead of now walking on living plant, you're walking on petrified wood that's just hardened over time to be able to support, but has lost all color, has lost all life, has lost even its patterns, just to look like a strange, winding, knotted floor that if you weren't actively in flight could easily trip over. The walls of the cave, you can see, have had centuries, if not millennium, of mycelial vines running through them that seem to show the history of it, as some of them remain, but some of them have outgrown themselves, and you can see root systems that have died out and their imprint almost like a fossil in the sides of the wall. But you can also see parts that have cannibalized itself, as there wasn't enough room for whatever was trying to compete to live down here. And so the stronger vine chokes out the other, and two convergent patches land in one spot, and only one vine continues on. all of it still feels clean. All of it still feels that same wrongness of order. But there's no dust being kicked up. There's the faint little motes of light that are filtering down as this place seems to have some sort of natural lighting inside of it, unlike most else of what you've seen. And with each step you take, a pulse, a thrum, comes from deeper into this cave, as it seems now that your active movement is vibrating the chasm in the same way whatever beats the heart did prior.
And this cavern is, as I look up and around, currently empty. There's nothing that would give way to the sense that there is a heart yet where this pulsing is leading to, or?
It doesn't seem to have a clear end, but it also doesn't seem to really have direction.
Awesome. We love that. We love no sense of direction. Super deep underground. She continues forward, and if she didn't have the flight holding her up, she would have a fairly severe limp from the fall, as she can sense her energy draining and feeling like she's on a limited amount of time of consciousness, is relying more and more on the flight to get her forward. And speeds up a little bit as the thought of dying in this place almost freezes her where she stands. But instead it just motivates her to go forward as quickly as possible.
You've climbed your way out. Now you're at my door. And yet you claim you do not want devotion. And you, I imagine, are not planning to tell me the terms of your deal.
She continues forward.
Very well. And I suppose we shall meet in a different arena. And you feel the floor, as you're continuing forward, just slowly move itself down, preventing you from going where you had gone foot after foot. You can, however, continue to fly. So if you don't want to follow that, you don't have to. It does seem, though, that he is inviting you somewhere else.
I'm gonna pray to Record for guidance.
Okay.
And I don't know if this will work because I am in fact in another god's domain, and frankly Record and I don't have we have a working relationship, and that's about it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so you kind of answered what God answers your prayer by saying you're praying to Record. I think as you sit there, momentarily paralyzed in the own thought of yourself dying here, and then you take that step forward and a conversation happens, you feel that paralyzation happen once more, but it's not you going back into your head as much as you know it's the feeling of Record trying to commune. And it's unclear if it's because he's himself and unwilling to be beneficial, or if it's because of this distance. But the only omen you get is that you feel almost like your heart is reverberating in time with the pulses coming from the one on your original path.
She nods a little to herself, although she doesn't know if he can see it, but it is acknowledgement and thanks. And will use her flight to not follow that path that Parrish is trying to get her on.
Okay. As you fly over, then continuing through these pathways, following now easier because it seems like your own breath and your own pulse, the blood moving in your veins, seem to resonate more with the cavern than probably you ever wanted them to. And you come to... It's difficult to call it beautiful, but it's not the wrong word. A beautiful chamber of those blooming red flowers you saw earlier, the ones that grew the polyp eyes. But here they don't seem to have growths. They don't seem to be broken. They seem pure. And they seem as though they were meant to be here. They smell sweet, almost like honeysuckle and wisteria, and you're not sure if it's a trap to be so inviting or if maybe the end isn't that bad after all, if this is what it looks like. And as you're walking, these flowers bloom from all of the decay around and all of the hardwood until you reach a cavern seemingly made of them. There's no longer a felt wood beneath you, but instead almost bush-like branches, as though they were rose bushes, despite these not being any sort of rose you've seen before, netting itself together with nettles stinging throughout the ground, building a floral chamber, and in the center is a large beating heart, and inside of that seems to be a man floating. He's taller than any human, probably 9 feet tall, has flowing red hair, is wearing a simple red kilt and sash. A beautiful man surrounded by beautiful flowers, floating in a heart.
Beholding divinity is not something that Odette will ever get used to. And despite what she's been put through and the horror that she's seen, she understands that it is simply this god's nature to do this. And she shakily gives a nod of respect and reverence, although she has adjusted her stance to have the spear pointed defensively.
Young child, you don't need to do what they ask.
I am afraid it is the only way.
Who says? You and I do not know each other. I do not believe I've taken anything from you. And yet you are here because
she thinks back to the distorted faces of the people, the first people who showed her kindness in this new world, and the first people who revealed to her that there were still people outside of the tower. I disagree.
on what ground?
You have taken people and distorted them horrifically.
I have taken those who have trespassed with ill will in their hearts and intent to harm. Is self-defense an offense these days? I see you are defending yourself now in your stance. Is that a crime punishable?
I'm sorry.
And he moves his hand. And can I get you to either wield your power to fly or tempt fate to try and get out of it as you see him move his hand? And in a strange bullet time that you're both perceiving with every second, potentially because your your senses are so heightened, or potentially because Record is still guiding you in a way that you didn't recognize, you're able to see it in the divine time. Just a large bouquet blooms above you. You smell it before you feel it, and then suddenly pollens and petals and nettles and leaves all rush down towards you. And you just know in your heart, being hit with this is not going to help anything for Odette.
I think this is a good try to wield wind's power, even if flight is not quick enough to try to almost create a wind shield. Tempt fate for this.
Okay. No one is lending you a hand.
No.
You have other options.
Yeah. I'm scared. Uh-oh, overkill. That's 2 6s.
Oh, so that's a 13. So, please describe to me how Odette nimbly avoids this, blossoming trap she almost fell into.
Because it is an overkill, I believe it is desperate and clumsy. It is a full dive out of the way. A dive and roll. And it has her, prone on the ground because it is an immediate mortal reaction of get out of the way. And that's what matters in this exact moment.
Mm-hmm. Then, seeing that, Parrish looks down. Well, they've clearly trained you. And I can feel this cling of the one who knows tied to you. I am gentle, but I am still a god of war. And I suppose it's time you meet my army. And on that overkill, blossoming all over, each of the petals seems to grow larger until they're almost humanoid shape. And these strange, petal people almost making the faces of those you recognize, but you can tell that they're not humans. They're the memories of their lives stored in the network emerge, and there are hundreds of people around you, all of them with vines sharper than any blade you've seen before, ready to attack you.
That's awesome. That's so cool. I'm gonna unleash my divinity.
Oh, that's awesome. That's cool. What you doing?
I don't know. No, I'm kidding. Wouldn't that be great? Hey, I don't know. You tell me. No, it is this pure desperation that is continuing, and she uses what's left of the spear to make herself stand up, and it's showing the mortal part of her in this moment is not quite enough. And so the divinity takes over instead, and that this divinity was awakened by desire and want. And so the mortal part of her and the divine part of her are mixing with that mortal instinct and need to live, and knowing that the possibility has just gone down significantly, and that she needs to get this task done and cannot with what has just occurred, because she will be stopped before. And her eyes glow that light blue that her divinity tends to carry as that want and that need grows exponentially and very quickly. And that want to make all of these newly sprouted enemies go away emanates from her in a concussive force that would, if possible, simply turn them to dust, to settle on the ground with the rest of the dry dust that has accumulated in this room.
And are you choosing to make it brief, obvious, or unstable?
I mean, it is pretty obvious, and it is pretty brief, and it's probably unstable. I think I'm gonna go with obvious because it makes her nature immediately known to this god in front of her.
Then seeing your display, it works. It is you unleashing your divinity. It is you calling upon that which makes you a god in your own right. You may not have your own domain, but you are able to use the power in you, and the second that they're there, you eradicate an army. Their general, however, has left his cocoon and stands in front of you.
Oh, gosh!
And he is going to swing on you. What would you like to do to prevent that? If this hits, you are going to take your 5th strain.
Instinctual reaction, I think this happens at the same time. Not entirely preventing it. But she had been leaning on the spear, or she went to lean on the spear from the overexertion.
Mm-hmm.
He's in front of her. All of her weight is going into the spear that has been coated with the holy water, and is going to stab, actually lean into him with all of her weight because she's so weak right now, and try to stab into his heart.
Okay, so that would typically be inflict violence, but here you have met all the criteria to kill a god. You have found his true form in their body, and you have managed to keep divine holy water clean through everything. Getting yourself here. There is nothing to add to this roll. There is nothing to gain from this roll. Simply roll 2d6.
That is a 5.
Okay. As you hit, you feel it's almost the same as opening the initial membrane as you hit the exterior and move through that layer. And then you get to what seems to be like an armor you didn't see that just magically projected around, and your holy water melts it away until the tip of your spear makes contact, based on your angle, probably right at the bottom of his throat as he's towering over you. And it's almost like connecting with Immortal as the beautiful man stands in front of you and looks down and starts coughing as you have plunged into him. And you feel as he stumbles back, your spear still lodged in him, pulling it out of your hands and throwing you off your feet with the last of your energy. that the cave around you is starting to wither and die at the same time. And he looks to you, knowing he's dying. Child of unnecessary violence, you will never die. And he collapses to the ground. And Odette is in a tunnel, collapsing in on itself.
Oh man, she's gonna use the absolute last of her energy in pure desperation, and what he said to her just makes her heart sink, as she does not know what that means, but it sounded much more like a promise than a simple last words. And she will desperately pull herself up, almost in the scene playing out in slow motion, and she is both running and flying to go as quickly as she can to try to get out of here at any cost, as long as she gets out.
And that is where we will stop for today. Goodbye.